It's Monday night, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And yes, I am the generational talent in Garden State media because my level of honesty, ladies and gentlemen, now more than ever is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right. I'm the hero you need right now in all forms of media. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday to you all. Happy Easter week. I know many of you are off this week. Many of my fellow educators, obviously others in other fields, of course, you're enjoying Easter week. So again, we appreciate you making this a part of your Monday night viewing. And of course, I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so right now live on Facebook via StreamYard, of course, on the Jersey First YouTube page, in addition to all of our social media platforms. And speaking of which, folks, if you haven't done so already, do me a favor. It takes 5 seconds. I've actually counted to like, comment, and share and subscribe to Real Talk with Fernando Uribe on Jersey First TV. Of course, make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and X, and of course, for all of you that love us on YouTube, do so. And again, share it on all of your platforms. And whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First, and of course, take it with you on any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. Of course, for many of you that are on Easter vacation this week, maybe you're home doing some chores, cleaning up. I'm sure you have your smartphone or some device near you. Tune in to Jersey First. Trust me, you won't regret it. And of course, folks, I can't say it enough. What a privilege it is to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right. It is Jersey First TV. Of course, brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday with my outstanding tag team partner, the amazing Elizabeth Nader, with her show, The Nader Narrative. And of course, live every Monday night. Of course, check your local listings. For start times, you'll check out Real Talk with Fernando Uribe here on the Jersey First Television Network. Folks, you want to stick around for final thoughts because I have a lot to say, really. And, you know, it's hard to be humble when you're getting numbers like this. But seriously, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you again for another successful month of March. Over 117,000 organic views here on this program, folks. Listen, unlike these little Mickey Mouse journalists with the little Mickey Mouse shows and the little Mickey Mouse traffic, folks, you know, the only traffic they know is on Route 78. Or Route 4, okay, or Route 22, or the Garden State Parkway, or the Turnpike. Folks, it's real traffic because it's Real Talk. And I'll share more about that later in the broadcast. You don't want to miss out on that. And, of course, folks, you definitely want to tune in for final thoughts. I'm going to have a lot to say, of course. And it seems like a lot of people haven't learned their lessons since November. Many people in media, advocacy, activism. But, of course, specifically in media, it seems like two specific guys haven't learned their lesson. Of course, the Trump derangement syndrome runs rampant at Insider NG, of course, with the resident virtue signaler. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, their editor-in-chief and the, God, you know, as a Cowboys fan, it breaks me down here to just see like the most unmasculine cowboy I've ever seen. Folks, if you ever want to check out what a beta male looks like, yeah, folks, it's Max Pizarro with Insider NJ. I'll kind of give you the rundown about his latest column and the latest lunacy from Insider NJ, courtesy of Little Maxie, Max Pizarro. And of course, when we talk about Trump derangement syndrome, we can always rely on Uncle Dave from NJ Spotlight News. And folks, I got to tell you, I mean, it's so fulfilling, you know, as a Catholic and Christian, you know, it is Easter week. And of course, it's the week to think about miracles as we all see the resurrection of Christ later this weekend. My God, seeing David Cruz work 3 times last week, I mean, that's a miracle in itself with this lazy bastard. I'll tell you more about Uncle Dave later on during Final Thoughts. But folks, it is an election season. And of course, you know, everyone's talking about the gubernatorial primary races for the Democrat and Republican parties collectively. And of course, there's a lot of municipal races that are very, very on everyone's radar. But certainly all 80 state assembly seats are up for grabs. And if there's ever a year for Republicans to not just only keep their seats, but add on to some seats and maybe shave into that majority that Democrats have right now, which is 52-28 in the state assembly. Well, this is the year to start doing that. You know, of course, winning some seats in Central and South Jersey is key, but keeping many great assemblymen and assemblywomen in office, that's another key component for this year. And of course, folks, why not talk to one of the most compelling assemblymen in the state assembly, folks? He's my good friend. And I got to tell you, just a sort of a precursor here, when Real Talk started in the summer of 2020, I reached out to a lot of legislators. And this guy was one of the first ones to return my call, and he's been on the show consistently, and I'm eternally grateful to him for his confidence and his belief in my brand of journalism. Folks, he is the distinguished state assemblyman in the 40th legislative district. And by the way, again, just to let you know, it encompasses various municipalities in Bergen County, which include Franklin Lakes, Ridgewood, and Wyckoff, along with Essex County, which includes, of course, Caldwell, Cedar Grove, Essex Fells, Fairfield, North Caldwell, Verona, and West Caldwell. And of course, also in Passaic County includes the municipalities of Little Falls, Hawthorne, Toyota, Wayne, and Woodland Park. He is the distinguished assemblyman, folks. Christopher DePhillips joins us live right now on Real Talk. Assemblyman, how are you?
Great to see you. It's been a while.
Yes, I think it was like around this time last year, Assemblyman, that you've been on. I've been so busy interviewing candidates and just talking about topics, but it's an election season, man. And I got to tell you that as I just started off with the monologue, certainly Republicans have a chance to win some assembly seats with a lot of vulnerable Dems in Central and South Jersey. But it's equally as important to keep the good assemblymen and assemblywomen in office right now. And you're one of them in the 40th legislative district. How's everything in LD 40?
Things are good, but people are worried about the economy and their futures, and they're not happy with state spending out of control. And so that's my job, is to try to get my arms around that and do my part to bring fiscal sense to the legislature.
Now, folks, again, if you're not familiar with it, obviously under state law, by 11:59 p.m. on June 30th, the state has to ratify a budget. It has to be signed by the governor. And if it's not, at 12:01 a.m. on July the 1st, the state can and will shut down. Now, in my lifetime, at least that I recall, we've had two incidents where it has shut down. I remember in 2017 under Governor Chris Christie, and in 2006 under Governor John Corzine. But in recent years, Assemblyman, it seems like the legislature and Governor Murphy have kind of gone down to the wire a little bit. June 28th, June 29th, and it's kind of like been scraping by just getting the budget passed. But I got to tell you, over the last 8 years, I mean, Governor Chris Christie left office in January of 2018 with a budget, I recall, of $29 billion. It has gotten as large as Governor Christie himself now at $58 billion under Governor Murphy. What gives, man?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are just astronomical. You and I have been talking about this for years. In fact, I think the first time you interviewed me was back in 2018 when I was a freshman, and we were talking about the insanity then. So yeah, $34 billion was the budget on Governor Christie's way out, and now it's $58 billion. So that's a 68% increase. And most families in New Jersey will not willy-nilly increase their spending by 68% over just basically a handful of years. Makes no sense, and especially doesn't make sense when you don't have the money.
And certainly, it's interesting because during COVID and really in the year and a half, almost to 2 years afterwards, I mean, I always feel insulted. I'm not an economist, even though I play one on TV sometimes, Assemblyman, but it was insulting to me to hear the treasurer of the state and Governor Murphy talk about a surplus. No, a surplus, I'll tell everybody what a surplus is. A surplus is when you look at your bills and you cut down spending, and if there's money left over, that's a surplus. Getting COVID money from the federal government and borrowing down the road and kicking the can down the road, that's not a surplus. Again, if that's how economics is taught today, we're in trouble, Mr. Assemblyman.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we've been playing games with the surplus for years with the budget. The surplus is fictional in many ways because the state is in debt. If the state is drowning in debt and on the precipice of bankruptcy, you can't say you have a surplus.
That's absolutely correct. And it's really been insulting to me thinking about the language that the budget chair in the Senate, for example, State Senator Paul Sarlo, has used. I know your colleagues across the aisle. And listen, if there's ever a year to raise an awareness about New Jersey's lack of affordability, and folks, again, just to give you the context here of how unaffordable it's become here. Obviously, the average folks, and listen, I don't like to read NJ.com too often because I like to sort of preserve my brain cells, but occasionally they'll get an article or two right. And they'll promote, and they'll actually report on something that's actually legitimate. And yes, New Jersey now on average is over $10,000 when it comes to property taxes. Case in point, Mr. Assemblyman, where I live in Hudson County in LD 33. Now, in fairness, my mayor is also my state senator. He's done a great job in keeping property taxes down, considering that I walk a block and I'm by the light rail. I walk 2 blocks and I'm looking at Manhattan. So, I'm paying for where I live. I get that. But just if I travel a little bit north on what's called River Road into southern Bergen County, okay, we're looking at municipalities that are averaging $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 in property taxes, like in Alpine, Cresskill, and Closter. Let's go a little bit west or a little bit south. Let's go into like parts of Union County, like Summit and Short Hills. We're talking about $21,000, $22,000, even $23,000. So property taxes have continued to go up. We've seen the gas tax go up incrementally under two governors, really, going back to Chris Christie. And now this past December, the final phase kicked in. So essentially, we're paying almost 60 cents more on the gallon. And while crude oil is going down, and yes, the cost of gas has gone down, guess what? We should be paying about $2 a gallon. We can't. We're still in the 260, 270 range because of the gas tax. And last but not least, obviously, tolls and everything else have gone up exponentially on the Parkway and Turnpike. And, obviously it's to help the Transportation Trust Fund. I don't know about you. I don't trust any transportation here. When AAA has New Jersey roads ranked in the bottom third, Mr. Assemblyman, can we make sense of all this, please?
No, we cannot. And we left out New Jersey Transit as well, right? And that agency has, been a disaster. It does have new leadership, and I'll give Chris Calori credit where credit is due. He's reached out to me and other members of the legislature to try to give a new start. But the amount of money that's gone through into that agency, and you don't see the service, the reliable service, the safe service that people in our state, and particularly in your neck of the woods, deserve.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, we saw it last summer, and I have a car and I really like driving everywhere, Mr. Assemblyman, but occasionally, I'll take like a light rail or a train, but I'm very self-reliant. I like my car. I like to get to places from A to B, and that's how I am. But the bottom line is we learned last summer, especially for so many New Jerseyans, I'm sure many that live in your district would have to be sitting at either Port Authority or Penn Station in New York City, waiting for those trains that oftentimes would never come. So I can even imagine Uber and Lyft drivers, how rich they got on residents having to say, you know what, F this, I'm going to go home, take an Uber or Lyft. It's hot, it's cold in the winter. And it's so disrespectful, I think, for years now that New Jersey Transit just hasn't been able to get its act together, and why governors, both Republicans and Democrats collectively, haven't been more, I think, punitive with New Jersey Transit. Why is that?
Listen, I don't know. It's just it's one of those agencies where it believes that it needs more money to do the things that it's not doing. And when you give them the additional money, service doesn't increase, service is not enhanced, it doesn't get better, and in fact, it gets worse. So I really think that agency, we really need to start over, blow it up, and reform it. And I've made my views known to the administration, to the incoming and the current director of New Jersey Transit. And reform, it doesn't even do that word doesn't even do justice to what needs to happen to that agency.
Mr. Sumlin, do you think it's realistic, regardless, and we'll get to the governor's race in a minute, but do you think it's realistic for whoever is the governor coming up in January of 2026 that they can just sort of say this out loud? Maybe it's taboo. I want to audit New Jersey Transit. Is that realistic in my lifetime?
100%. And I've said that. And I've said that to the governor. I've said that to the former executive director of New Jersey Transit, Kevin Corbett, and the new executive director, Chris Calori, who I said is trying, and he's inherited a mess. But most certainly, you need to audit that agency from top to bottom, and we should do that for all state agencies, right? We're the guardians of the people's money. We should know from top to bottom what is going on in these agencies, and the only way to know that is to dig deep and do the audits that you just mentioned.
Folks, if you're just joining us live right now, it is 6:14 here on the East Coast. My guest this week is a distinguished assemblyman in the 40th Legislative District, Christopher DePhillips, our guest here this week on Real Talk. Folks, it takes 5 seconds. Trust me, I've counted. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Real Talk here on Jersey First TV. Folks, we'll take some comments or questions there. Obviously, the comment section is wide open. Have any questions for the assemblyman? I'm more than happy to take them here live on the broadcast. Assemblyman, at the end of the day, though, is it really more just political, or is it just one of those things where you don't want to say out loud, I want to audit New Jersey Transit?
I don't know why anyone would be afraid to say that. And that's what we're supposed to be doing as legislators and as guardians of the taxpayers' money. And it's not a personal attack to say that that agency needs to be audited or some other state agency needs to be audited, like the Department of Labor, for example. Yes. And we remember during COVID what happened with the Department of Labor. The Motor Vehicle Commission should be audited. And I think it should be something that's routinely done so we can really, like I said, dig deep, get into the nitty gritty of what the numbers are, where the money's going, where the money's not going, and why they continually ask for more money. So I think that is just what budgeting should be about, and that's what our oversight responsibilities should be about.
It's funny you mentioned the MVC. I mean, I'm not interested in getting a real ID. Trenton already takes enough of my money. I refuse to give him even 24 more dollars for a real ID. I'm traveling this summer. I'll travel with my passport. I'm fine. I don't have to worry about it. But it's interesting because even now, I know people that reach out to me and say, "I can't even get an appointment at the MVC to get a real ID." So you want to talk about either incompetence or just I don't even know the words, Mr. Assemblyman, about how to describe agencies like the MVC, where it should be easier for New Jersey residents to go there and secure something that, again, has kind of been imposed on us, right? Such as a real ID.
Yeah, my two oldest children went through it. They had difficulty getting appointments. It was a bureaucratic mess. And the people in New Jersey deserve better than that, for sure.
Now, let's get to the budget. Obviously, it is budget season, as I just alluded to. Obviously, I know you have been one of the most vocal opponents about wasteful spending in the legislature for as long as I've known you. As you mentioned, going back to your freshman time there back in 2018. What are you seeing right now? And I know that the governor is looking to tax everything under the sun on his way out. Obviously, it might not be an enjoyable summer for a lot of us if we're looking to either, I don't know, gamble or go play laser tag or whatever the hell we're going to
Yeah,
do this summer. But the bottom line is, what right now stands out for you as the most concerning dynamics about this budget?
that the governor wants to tax fun. Did you see my political ad for my race?
Yes.
So that sort of sums it up. My running mate Al Barlas and I, we put out an ad that says just that. The administration wants to literally tax fun because it's running out of things to tax. And that's a big problem for the state. If we're running out of things to tax, and now we're moving on to like laser tag to tax or bowling, for example, we're getting desperate. And again, why the addiction? Why the addiction to taxing and spending?
Right.
How about a 5% across the board cut on all agencies and arrest this spending while we still can, while we still have a state?
And it's interesting now the governor wants to have a hiring freeze. I think to your point, there was rhetoric about, hey, let's have a 5% cut across the board. I literally feel like screaming at my TV and saying, bro, you should have done this in 2021 for
Yep.
God's sakes.
Yep.
Why are you waiting to go on the way out? And again, it's a reminder where, New Jerseyans are leaving the state, obviously nowhere near in the same capacity as New York and California. I mean, based on what we're seeing right now with estimates, Mr. Assemblyman, I mean, people are voting with their feet. And New Jersey, for example, New York and California are due to lose some electoral votes because of, people leaving the state. I think it's a matter of time before New Jersey's 14 electoral votes start getting shaved down because people just can't afford to live here. And hence, I would say they're going to start moving out. I mean, they already are moving out.
Yeah, they are moving out, and seniors are moving out. Seniors can't afford to stay here. Businesses are moving out. Executives are moving out. Jobs are moving out. And I've been saying this for 7.5 years that I've been in the legislature. Some people believe it's not true. In the majority party, they just don't believe that it's true, and they can't accept the reality that it is happening.
It's really alarming to see this within the budget itself. And obviously, it brings us into your campaign now. Obviously, you're up this year, as well as obviously all 80 assembly seats are up for grabs. And I got to tell you that, again, in a year where Republicans are making a lot of strides with registration statewide, they've cut into that lead. The Democrats at one point, I think about 3 years ago, had a 1.1 million registration advantage. That's been shaved down, I think, almost into the 800,000, if
Yeah,
I'm not mistaken.
it's 850.
Yeah. And now, having said that, Democrats still have a pretty big majority in the assembly at 52-28. But I think if there's a year for Republicans to start shaving in there, I got to tell you, listen, I think it's not realistic to believe that, you can sort of flip the assembly in this cycle. Maybe it takes maybe one or two more cycles. But I got to tell you, and we'll get to the governor's race in a minute, but if we can get into like maybe 33, 34 Republicans in the assembly and shaving into that, where it's only 40 something Democrats, I mean, I think that would make considerable strides. Now, again, where I live in Hudson County, Assemblyman, it's as blue as Windex. So that's not realistic. But I think there's a lot of vulnerable Dems in Central and South Jersey collectively that are ripe for the picking. And I would say, listen, if there's a year where there's energy from last November, we had people voting early like crazy, we had vote by mail. It's interesting, things that Democrats thought, hey, we start using this, and well, it's going to benefit us forever. No, it came back to bite you in the ass last year. And I think that if Republicans go about it in a smart way this year, Mr. Assemblyman, I think that Republicans can make some gains. What districts do you think possibly Republicans can make some gains this year?
4, 8, 38, possibly 16. You remember in 2021, when Jack Ciattarelli was the nominee 4 years ago, we picked up 6 seats. We got to that 34 number, which you mentioned, and it did make a big difference in terms of how votes went, what the majority would post or not post on the agenda for a voting session. So we need to get those 6 seats back for sure, and we need to get some additional. If we could get to between 34 and 37, it's a total game changer. I think you're right. It would be difficult to get the majority after just one election. Obviously, we're aiming for that. And with President Trump's victory in November of 2024, we're hoping a lot of those voters stick with us in November of 2025. So it certainly is possible that we could get to 41. Jack Ciattarelli is likely to be the nominee, and he's a great campaigner. He pulled 6 new seats into the assembly when he ran last time.
Well, it's interesting because, again, that energy, I remember being in Wildwood last May. I was in the press pit covering President Trump's visit to Wildwood, and I get that people, especially on the left and the liberal media, Assemblyman, were all about, well, what's really the number? I was there. I can tell you, at the minimum, there was 50,000 people on that beach. Okay, it looked like, again, maybe you're not familiar with this, but an old WCW pay-per-view back in the day for World Championship Wrestling, where they actually had matches on the beach in a ring, it felt like 50,000 people there. So there was enthusiasm for the president last year. It translated into the president nearly coming within 5 points of winning New Jersey for the first time since George H.W. Bush in 1988. A little history lesson for everybody on the program tonight. I think that certainly, listen, and I don't want to piss off some of my viewers tonight, but I think we got to be realistic. I'm looking at some polling data, people that I trust, operatives wide here in the state. I think it's fair to say that Jack Ciattarelli is going to win the primary, I think, by a pretty reasonable margin. What we can't have, Assemblyman, is what happened in 21. We had a lot of tribalism, and a lot of Republicans were fickle. Well, Jack didn't check off all these boxes, and Jack didn't do this, or Jack wasn't this, or wasn't that. We can't afford that this year. I get it that Jack, again, looks very likely, if not certainly, to win the primary decisively. If you're a Bill Spadea supporter or a John Bramnick supporter or a Mario Kranjak supporter or even an Ed Durr supporter, who I know who's pulled out of the race, he still has his fans, you have to rally around Jack, because what's happened for the last 8 years has been this tax and spend fixation. And I hate to say it. And listen, again, Mikey Sherrill's going to be the nominee. She's going to win the primary for the Democrat Party. And I think the fine line she has to walk is, yes, she wants to try to push that New Jersey has become affordable, but not at the expense, obviously, of the last 8 years, where she just can't openly say, well, New Jersey's unaffordable because of Phil Murphy. She can't do that. So it's a very fine line. Having said that, I think Jack and the NJGOP have to find a way to just motivate people and say, listen, you may not like everything about Jack, and I certainly have my reservations about Jack. I've said it to his face at the League of Municipalities and various events, but I think Jack is a genuine person. Having said that, we have to rally. 35% of registered Republicans voted in 2021. If even half of registered Republicans vote, Jack's the governor in 2021. We can't have that again, Mr. Assemblyman.
No question. If we can get to 45 to 50%, and with the registration changes that you mentioned before, whereas the Democrats had 1 million voters, plurality against us in 2021, and that's down to 850. So we picked up 150,000 voters, plus additional turnout to 45 or 50%. No question, Jack Ciattarelli, whoever the nominee is, we certainly could win the governorship without question.
And again, there has to be that energy. People went to early voting by the droves, and we saw that. I'm not sure what the numbers were in your district. I know here in Hudson County, I mean, Donald Trump won towns like Bayonne. He came within like less than 100 votes of winning Secaucus. He made inroads in the bluest of areas, which I would argue is Hudson County.
He carried Passaic County, which I represent, and that includes Patterson.
Yeah.
So Trump won Passaic County. In my legislative district, my district has become more purple over the years. There are 8 towns with 50-50 registration and or Democratic majority registration. So 6 out of those 8 towns went for Trump in droves. In Woodland Park, for example, which is a very solid Democratic town in my district, Trump won decisively, not just by a squeaker, decisively.
He certainly did. And again, that's what kind of helped propel Billy Prempe almost to really, I mean, he lost by 1.5 points to Nelly Poe. And, again, I don't want to sort of dump on the NJGOP. I do it enough, but I think if the national GOP even pumped $1 million into that race, I think Billy Prempe is the representative in that congressional district. But, he's going to try again next year. We'll see. But to your point, yes, I mean, there was an enthusiasm about the president. And do you think at all, again, he's been very, very coy right now. He has not endorsed anyone yet in New Jersey. I know that last year when he came to Wildwood, that was really maybe about the weekend before Memorial Day, which is about 2 weeks out from the primary. He did endorse Christine Serrano Glassner in the Senate race, and that didn't really help her because it was so close to the primary. We're still about 2 months out. Do you think the president is going to maybe endorse anytime soon, or do you think he's just going to sort of wait this out?
Yeah, I'm not convinced he's going to endorse, but Kellyanne Conway, for example, who is very close to the president, is in favor of the president endorsing Jack Ciattarelli. Bill Spadea, who I consider a friend, John Bramnick, who I consider a friend. I would be surprised if President Trump endorsed Bill Spadea, but it's possible. And there are a lot of Trump supporters in New Jersey who are supporting Bill Spadea. And I'm not trying to criticize Bill, but yeah, and there are forces within Trump world who would want the president to endorse Bill. But I think the president is shrewd. Kellyanne Conway is shrewd. I think they see the numbers the way they are. And like you said earlier, and I mentioned, I think most likely it is going to be Jack as the nominee.
I mean, listen, it's no coincidence during the NJGOP summit last month in Atlantic City. I mean, both Ciattarelli and Spadea made it a point to, make the rounds at the summit, but they got on a helicopter or wherever they got on to get to Bedminster, and the president was in town in New Jersey. And listen, it was a great photo op for both of them. Right. We'll see, to your point, Kellyanne Conway with the Kitchen Table Conservatives PAC has run a lot of ads in recent months, obviously against Spadea. We know Jack's own ads have been pretty interesting. I'm not sure if you saw one of the ads, but he used the line, and I immediately texted him the night it premiered. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. We got to worry. Listen, let's stop worrying about pronouns and worry about property tax. I'm like, I've heard that somewhere. And I was like, Jack, I don't know. I won't charge you a commission here, but I was happy to see Jack come out with that sort of tenacity, because I think that what did we learn last November, Mr. Assemblyman, that New Jerseyans, Americans collectively, and I can say this, it's my show, but they got tired of all the woke bullshit, of all the stuff about transgendered people, about the alphabet mob, about, gender and race and this and that. And I think all New Jerseyans and Americans, not just white Americans and New Jerseyans, Hispanics, Blacks, Middle Easterns, Asians, college-educated women, single moms, single dads, said, we're tired of this. Yes, we like harmony in society, but this fixation on woke bullshit doomed Democrats. And you're seeing it here in New Jersey. It's kind of dooming Democrats too. Is that fair to say?
If there was ever a state built on common sense, it was New Jersey. So if you asked people in the state, do you care more about pronouns or property taxes? 95% of the people are going to say, of course, property taxes. And that's what they want to hear from their leaders. And Democrats would say that, independents would say that, and Republicans. So you're absolutely right. People want common sense solutions. New Jersey is by and large a moderate state, whether you're a moderate Democrat, moderate Republican, independent. Of course, the undeclareds actually have the most number of voters in New Jersey, and they tend to be somewhat in the middle. So you do have to play to the middle, and you have to play to the common sense values of New Jerseyans.
I think Jack has been trying to do that. If you noticed during the last debate at Rider University in February, he was trying to do that. And again, coming up now in May, both with NJ Spotlight News and the New Jersey Globe, once again, it seems like it's kind of cluttered in, man. Like really within a span of 10 days, both Republicans and Democrats are going to be debating really right up to the primary. So it'll be very interesting. Real quick, and I just want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, on the Democrat primary side, 6 Democrats, Assemblyman. It almost seems like they're trying to, like, who's trying to up progressive the progressive to be the progressive? And yes, we have people like Steve Sweeney, former Senate president, who's run some very convincing ads. But I got to tell you, when I saw that ad and I hear, well, I'm a Trenton insider. I know what it's like to work in Trenton. Assemblyman again, and I don't want to get too, it's a PG show, but the reason the state's gone to shit is because for much of your tenure as Senate president, you gave Phil Murphy all these emergency powers during COVID. You kept the state shut down longer than it should have been. So I personally can't trust Steve Sweeney. And when it comes to, let's say, the NJEA, really, I don't need to have the president of arguably the state's most pervasive union to be in the governor's mansion. And to say nothing of the fact that you have 2 mayors who, yes, they're progressives, but Jersey City, if you've ever driven through Jersey City, Assemblyman, it looks like, and I'm not sure how much of a comic book fan you are, but I feel like I'm driving through Gotham City, like Wayne Towers. Like, it's become unaffordable to live in downtown Jersey City or even in Journal Square or even in Newark. Yeah, listen, I'm a hockey fan. I love going to Prudential Center, and you see a lot of high rent condos right by the train station, right off of Route 1. Yes, it's great, but walk 5 blocks anywhere in any direction in Newark away from Prudential Center, it's a shithole also.
Yeah, listen, the more progressive the Democratic Party gets, the better for us. So, right. So if the Democrats want to put up a far left progressive, that is only going to inure to the benefit of the Republicans. I mean, a candidate like Josh Gottheimer, who's my congressman, actually, in at least half of my district, he is speaking common sense about affordability in New Jersey and getting taxes under control. I think that will resonate with many New Jerseyans, regardless of party, as well as independents. But if that's not the message of the nominee of the Democratic Party, well, that's good for us. And naturally, it's only going to be good for us if that progressive does not win.
There's a lot of rumors, obviously, running rampant, Assemblyman. Obviously, you're running for re-election in your district, in the 40th legislative district. Tell us a little bit more about, really, since the last term. Obviously, you're running every 2 years. What can you brag about in terms of what you and your running mate and the state senator in LD40 have been able to accomplish?
Well, constituent service, number one. We're advocates for the people in our district, businesses, individuals, veterans, small business owners. I've been clamoring for small business owners since I've been in the legislature. I've been clamoring for tax credits and other incentives to keep businesses here, along the lines of what I've been saying tonight on your broadcast. So it's just bare knuckles representation, being the zealous advocate for my constituents, and I've been doing that since 2018. So has my running mate Al Barlas, and Senator Corrado and I have been together since the beginning. So we get results for our constituents. We do not control the agenda in Trenton, and that's a challenge for us, right? All we can use is our voice, right? And that's what we do every time we go down to the State House, and we use that voice every day to try to make the state better. And yeah, sometimes it feels like we're banging our heads against the wall, but that's what elections are for, right? And so every 2 years we have an election. And hopefully those Trump voters who were so enthusiastic just last November will stick around. That registration margin, like we said before, is dwindling for the Democrats. So that's good news for us. But like you said, turnout, turnout, turnout. That's what it's all about. It is not acceptable that we think it's a great night when less than half of the people who are registered Republicans vote. So if we can't get people out, that's going to be a problem.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, shout out to Al Barlas, your fellow Assemblyman. I've known Al. I mean, listen, I'm really going to date myself here. Going back to the days of when I was the chair of the Hudson County Young Republicans, and he was the Essex one, we would serve on the state board. That's how far back I know Al. So shout out to Al there.
Yep.
Your running mate and fellow Assemblyman in LD40. Having said that, though, Assemblyman, certainly, I'm pulling for you guys in LD40. Should you be successful, and all likelihood you will be, what would you like to focus on coming up in January of 2026, where hopefully it's a Republican governor? Hopefully there's more Republicans in the assembly that you can work with. But what would you really like to sink your teeth into in 2026?
Affordability, affordability, affordability. I'm the co-sponsor of a bill with Assemblyman Alex Zwicky to bring a Doge-like process to New Jersey. We're not looking for chaos. We're not looking for personal attacks. We're looking to streamline and bring down spending and taxation in New Jersey. So that certainly be one of the first things I would focus on. Al Barlas, my running mate, we just mentioned, he's a member of the Budget Committee. I assume he'll be joining me for sure in that type of activity. But it would be about affordability, cutting state spending, maybe instituting 5% spending cuts across the board, like I said before. So on and on. It's going to be about bringing economic relief and affordability to the state to stop the brain drain of executives and other really smart people, entrepreneurs who are leaving the state and they have other states to choose from. So that has to be our number one priority.
You mentioned about affordability, and obviously one of the big words that has come up a lot during this election cycle, though, Mr. Assemblyman, not just in the gubernatorial primary, but I think really in legislative races as well, has been development, and in some cases, overdevelopment throughout New Jersey, or even this idea that we should kind of like ram affordable housing down your throat in whatever town in New Jersey. And listen, I'm all for affordable housing. I think that, listen, where I live in Hudson County, we're talking about, property taxes over $10,000 for the most part. We got high cost rentals here, without a doubt. I walk 2 blocks. I'm looking at Manhattan, obviously, with the best view of the world, as they say, with the skyline. But we're seeing all these high rentals being built up by developers. I think any square footage of land the developers see in New Jersey is like, oh my God, they're foaming at the mouth, really. And I think it's really become, I think, this sort of pervasive act that is pricing out lifelong New Jerseyans. Having said that, realistically in your district, and again, looking at here at the breakdown, it's a very socioeconomically diverse district, I would argue, in terms of the municipalities there. How realistic is it, though? Is it just working with the municipalities to make sure that developers aren't getting like these crazy tax abatements for 10, 20, even 30 years? Is there something that can be done in Trenton, or is that more a local issue?
Yeah, what can be done in Trenton is to repeal A4, which was the bill that passed last year, which dramatically increased the numbers of affordable housing mandates that towns in my district and all over the state have to comply with. And you can't comply with these numbers. They're unattainable. There's in many of the towns I represent and throughout the state, there's just not enough room and not enough space to have these mandates. It's not going to work. You can't just pave over towns, right? And you also have to think about the costs, not only on the culture of your town or society in general, but police, fire, schools. Your taxes are just going to keep going through the roof if these mandates come down, and they're not rational mandates. They don't work.
When we think about these mandates, again, the governor's been very emphatic about imposing this when it comes to municipalities. Another thing that's also come up in the news cycle, Mr. Assemblyman, has been school districts fighting back against the governor and Attorney General Matt Plotkin when it comes to curriculum in our public schools. Now, I'm not sure what the breakdown is in LD 40, but what have you heard from constituents when it comes to school board elections? And again, we keep hearing about 5756. We keep hearing about a lot of school districts that have maybe not so much become woke, but they're adopting this sort of curriculum, or either teachers or administrators are avidly enabling, I think, very unhealthy content for our kids. As far as I'm concerned, I say it all the time. The idea that we learned it last November a little bit, right? Like that famous ad that really, I think, got President Trump across the finish line. Donald Trump. She's for they them. Donald Trump's for you. And that was such a powerful message, because for someone like me, Mr. Assemblyman, I mean, again, I'm so tired of especially in Trenton, we have legislators and activists that just keep coddling the trans community. These are people playing makeup and dress up. Everything going on with the alphabet mob in our schools. I mean, is there any relief on the way when it comes to like assemblymen like yourself that are leading the charge against this sort of toxic content for our kids?
Yeah, no, I'm the author and co-sponsor of multiple pieces of legislation that would prevent bureaucrats in Trenton on the State Board of Education and elsewhere from mandating and telling local school districts what they can and cannot do with books, with their libraries, et cetera. And that is a common sense approach that Democrats in my district, independents in my district, Republicans in my district have asked for. Again, so harkening back to what I said before, New Jersey is a state built on common sense. It does not make sense to have unaccountable Trenton bureaucrats deciding local education policy in a town, in a school district. That is better left to the local boards of education and local officials.
Mr. Assemblyman, again, folks, if you're just joining us right now, it's 6:41 here on the East Coast. We'll be wrapping up shortly here with our guest tonight. He is, again, the distinguished Assemblyman in the 40th Legislative District. My good friend, Christopher DePhillips, joins us live here on Real Talk. Assemblyman, moving forward again, obviously, I think we both kind of have an idea about what's coming up on June 10th when it comes to the primary races for both the Democrats and Republicans running for governor. Having said that, obviously the summer will come and go. New Jersey is one of those weird states where I think political junkies like myself are all about this, and we'll keep talking about. I don't take a break during the summer, unlike a lot of the lazy journalists in New Jersey. I'm going every week here, but it just seems that most New Jerseyans are probably going to start paying attention after Labor Day. Do you think that's a mistake for the candidates? Again, for the sake of argument, again, I'm not clairvoyant, but in all likely, it's going to be Jack Ciattarelli and Mikey Sherrill as the candidates for governor for both the Republicans and Democrat Party collectively. What do you think Jack can do during the summer? Not just going to festivals or obviously knocking on doors is important, but what would you advise Jack Ciattarelli right now during the summer months when maybe people aren't as engaged or aren't as interested in politics? Because let's be honest, after this winter that we've had or continue to have, if it's like 75, 80 degrees and I can go outside day drinking on a rooftop, I'm going to do that. But I'm still engaged with politics. How do we get away from maybe, people not being engaged during the summer?
I think he should remain engaged, and he has been engaged since 2021, since the day after he almost beat Phil Murphy in 2021. So that is one of his strengths. He engages with people, he connects with people in a real human way. So I would encourage him to continue to stay present, continue to stay focused, stay in front of the people, because guess what? When he's in front of the people, they unload on the politicians and the policies that they think are killing the state. So Jack's a good listener, and he leverages that information and that feedback from residents. And I'm sure he'll do it over the summer, and he'll take that energy into the fall for sure.
Mr. Assemblyman, you talked about constituent services before, and that's one of the things you're really proud of, again, in your terms in the legislature, really since 2018. When we talk about that specifically, what have you seen as perhaps the most effective means? Has it been like a town hall? Has it been just going door to door? Has it been phone banking? Like, what have you seen at least? I mean, I'm sure there's some data to support this. What have you seen as the most effective way when it comes to implementing constituent services and also reaching out to constituents that maybe just can't go to your office?
Yeah. So you need to know the people for them to then build trust in you and then contact you, right? So you have to be omnipresent in the district, available by phone, text, email, when they see you. I mean, it's a rare night when I don't have something in my district that I have to attend, and I want to attend for a resident, an interest group, a nonprofit. So you have to build those ties and those connections with people, and then they will rely upon you. And those calls will come, those texts will come, and I have an open door policy, not just in my district office, and it's not the normal first stop for people to come to the district office. They want to email you, they want to text you, and I give my number out to most everybody. So um, I think, or when I go to church over the weekend with my family afterwards, if I'm talking to somebody, they might pull me aside and say, "I have a problem. Can you help me?" If I go to my daughter's track meet, I'll see people there too. I'm a lawyer. I'm in my law firm right now. Even coworkers sometimes come up and say, "Can this be done?" So you have to be physically present in front of people, and that's the best way to build those bonds.
Certainly, there's a lot of rumors running rampant throughout the state assemblyman when it comes to certainly Jack looks very likely, if not certainly, to get across the finish line on June 10th. Certainly, June 11th, the process will begin. I keep hearing a guy out of Bergen County mentioned for Lieutenant Governor running mate. Hold on a second. He's a really handsome guy. He's an assemblyman in the 40th Legislative District. Not Al Barless. Sorry, Al, not trying to mess with your looks there. Another guy. Oh, yeah, that's right. I've heard Krista Phillips' name as a possible LG running mate. Care to tell me something tonight, bro?
I have not heard that. So thank you for telling me that.
Okay. Anything that you want to tell us about your interest in that, or?
No, because I'm surprised you're even mentioning my name, but thank you. I'm flattered you mentioned my name. We'll leave it at that. But
Okay. All right.
I think whether Jack is the nominee on the Republican side or Mikey Sherrill's the nominee on the Democratic side, the people will be voting for the gubernatorial nominee, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure they will trust if you're voting for Mikey Sherrill, you're likely to trust her LG appointee, right? And same with Jack. You would trust whoever he chooses to become his LG candidate. So it really is at the top where the decisions are made. And whereas I am confident Jack is likely going to be the nominee, I'm not as confident that Mikey Sherrill will be the nominee, although recent polling shows that she's moving in that direction. Her challenge, and this is a good comment to make because you're a journalist and you'll ask these questions if you get a chance to see her, is she needs to define who she is. Is she a moderate, like she portrayed herself when she first ran in, I believe it was in 2018?
Yeah.
Or is she drifting left and becoming more and more progressive? And unlike, like I said, my congressman, Josh Gottheimer, who has, I think, stuck to his moderate credentials. I think Mikey Sherrill, however, has drifted left, and she sees where the support needs to be in that party for her to get the nomination. And if she continues to move left, she's going to have a problem.
Well, listen, I'm with you on that. And at the debates at Rider University this past February, I mean, I was there in the media scrum. I was able to ask the representative. I asked all of them different questions. I was able to get them on the air. But to your point, I think that there's a really tricky line that she has to walk, right? I mean, again, she's talking about, hey, making New Jersey more affordable. Again, I think the most recent ad about, abortion rights and making a constitutional amendment. I mean, it's already codified into state law. I just think it's this weaponization of reproductive rights during every election cycle in New Jersey is bullshit. It's like, if you're a woman, a biological woman, folks, uterus, ovaries, okay. I know some people in New Jersey struggle with defining a woman, not you and I, Assemblyman, but, other people. But the point is that, like, here in New Jersey, I mean, there's some real serious issues here. Affordability, congestion, our roads still suck, things of that nature. And I think that she has to sort of walk that fine line of like, well, New Jersey has to become more affordable. Well, why isn't it affordable? And the easy thing to do is obviously, you can't throw Governor Murphy under the bus. Obviously, a fellow Democrat. At some point, you may want his endorsement if you're the nominee, right? And I think all the Democrats really in the field have to tread carefully. They don't want, they really don't want to say out loud what's obvious. Like, New Jersey is unaffordable. It's unaffordable because, again, it's not, listen, we can go after Governor Murphy for hours, but it's been, Republican governors as well, I think, in recent years. Democrats have had to control the legislature, Mr. Assemblyman, for more than 20 years. Okay, so they've had healthy majorities in both chambers for years. So when New Jersey is unaffordable, when property taxes continue to escalate, a tax on this, a tax on that, it's not conservatives or Republicans like myself or you that are actually in the legislature that, you can't blame Krista Phillips. Oh, New Jersey's unaffordable. Well, sorry, folks, you can't blame Krista Phillips. You can't blame, State Senator Corrado. You can't blame Assemblyman, Barless or Mike Testa or Declan O'Scanlan. You can't blame these people. You got to blame the people in blue that have been in the legislature for 20 years. So I think she's in a really big pickle about how to tread carefully when it comes to a message. And I think this is where Jack really needs to go after consistently starting on June 11th. Is that fair to say?
Yes. And I think also she can't pick on Governor Murphy, but she also, I don't think, can point to anything concrete that she has done in her 6-7 years in Congress to make New Jersey more affordable. And she's been in the House of Representatives when the Democrats did have the majority for several years. So what can she point to that has made our lives more affordable in New Jersey? I don't think she can.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a struggle for her. And I think if again, I'm not, auditioned to be an operative for Jack's campaign at all, but I think if you're Jack and certainly assembly candidates for the Republican Party. I think you have to sort of hammer home like, hey, the reason that New Jersey's still stuck in this ridiculous plastic bag ban, it's not people like Krista Phillips and Al Barlas and everyone else I mentioned. It's a lot of these Central and South Jersey Democrats that are really, really vulnerable. Like you mentioned, some districts that Republicans can really make some gains in. But Assemblyman, before I let you go, obviously we've gotten to know Christopher DePhillips, the Assemblyman, the legislator, the advocate for strong fiscal governance. But let's just have a quick lightning round about Christopher Phillips, the guy. Let's start off real quick as we close the show here. For everyone maybe that's not familiar with Assemblyman Christopher DePhillips, again, our guest tonight, folks, here on Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Lightning round starts now. Favorite MLB team?
Oh, Mets.
Okay. How do you feel about your Mets, man? Nice start to the season. How's the offense looking for you?
They're off to a good start, but that's not unusual for them to be off to a good start. It's really what happens later, what happens in August and September.
So obviously you've been a lifelong Met fan. Favorite Met?
Ooh, well, favorite Mets are really Mets of the past. I mean, I'm very nostalgic about, Tom Seaver, Rusty Staub, people like that. When I think about the Mets, I mean, obviously I'm still currently a Mets fan, but I look back at the good old days.
Is it fair to say probably the 88 team was probably the best team to not win a title?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Would you say that the 88 team was probably the best team to not win a championship?
Yeah, I think that's right. That's right. That we feel like we were robbed that year.
Yeah, it was a tough year against the Dodgers for sure. NFL team?
Giants.
Okay. Tough few years now. I mean, I'm a big Cowboy fan, as you know, Assemblyman. We've always had some little interesting jabs over the years. Listen, it's a home game for my Cowboys whenever we visit MetLife. So I always like the atmosphere at MetLife for Cowboy Giant games. How are you seeing it? Is this make or break for Coach Brian Daboll and
So.
GM Joe Shane, especially after the disaster of the last few years?
I think so. And by the way, how do you get away with being a Cowboys fan in Hudson County?
Oh, well, it's interesting. Well, listen, that's a story for another day, but I would tell you that I will say this. Listen, there's something about growing up loving Roger Staubach and, Captain America. Long before people talk about Steve Rogers, people talk about Captain America.
Do you know that in my household growing up, my New Yorker mom, Roger Staubach was her favorite quarterback. Why? Because he was a good family man and he was a good Catholic.
Yeah. And by the way, for a guy to not even get started in the NFL until 27 because he had to complete his responsibilities to the United States Navy, to think that he was the rookie of the year at 27 boggles the mind, right?
Yeah, I think my mom wanted him to run for president, as I recall.
Roger Staubach, class act, Hall of Famer. I would argue top 5 quarterback of all time. It's always enjoyable when I go to the games because it's always like half Cowboy fans in the ballpark. It's crazy every time I go, no matter how bad the Cowboys are or good or whatever, there's always a healthy representation of Cowboy fans in the area for sure. NHL team.
Oh, Devils.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up more a Rangers fan, and I went to Rangers games with my dad a lot. But I'm New Jersey true blue on hockey.
Okay. NBA.
Knicks.
Okay. Knicks, the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. Tough series with the Pistons coming up. How do you see that, Assemblyman?
Listen. I think Knicks are always exciting. They don't disappoint. Whether they can go the distance is another question.
And just going back to the NFL thing real quick, my dad's a big Jet fan. My dad immigrated here from Colombia in 1968. That was the year that the Jets won the Super Bowl. And ever since then, my dad's been dedicated to Joe Namath and the Jets. He's been suffering. He's been alive to see Knicks championships. As you can see behind me, I'm a Laker fan. I know it's like the most insufferable Yankees, Cowboys, Lakers. I know it's like the worst type of fan of someone.
What about golf? Did you watch golf yesterday?
I did, and I got to tell you, seeing Rory win that was amazing.
I'm a Rory fan, and I've felt his pain, and I think on a humanity level, I think it'd be difficult not to feel good about what he did yesterday. He really struggled. You can see he struggled over the years, and I think being a human and on display for all those years was inspiring, and I'm glad he got over the finish line.
I was very, very glad too. And by the way, speaking about sports, obviously over the weekend you caught the president in Miami at the recent UFC event, and isn't it refreshing to see a president that's awake at all hours and not asleep at the beach? Or listen, you wouldn't know anything about people objecting about tariffs or something else. With that ovation in Miami for the president of the United States to arrive there, I mean, it was. I mean, you're walking out to Kid Rock's music. You're walking out with Shaquille O'Neal shaking your hand. I mean, it's really refreshing, though, I have to say, to see the 45th and the 47th president coming out to this ovation at sporting events. You start at the Super Bowl, you start at NASCAR, you see the UFC. We'll see next year. Listen, next year the World Cup is here in the United States. It's here in New Jersey. Who knows? Maybe the president will come to New Jersey for the World Cup. We'll see.
He's a New Yorker at heart, and at his core, he gets people, right? He knows how to connect with people. And harkening back to his campaign in the fall, when he served burgers at McDonald's, that was one of the first times when a lot of pollsters saw a shift, right? And they saw a shift and he started to take off. And that was because he was connected with real people and felt really comfortable in his skin doing it.
He really, really did. And to your point, yes, it wasn't just the ads I mentioned, but to that point, the optic of like, hey, he's willing to roll up his sleeves and identify with you, as opposed to his opponent who was like on her third bottle of vodka, probably at the next press conference, right? Who knows?
Well, I think people felt that when push came to shove, if we were at risk as a country or we were under attack, they wanted him and they did not want her.
Oh, no, definitely. Listen, she'd be drunk. She wouldn't know where the button was, I mean, let's be honest. Not sure if you're an MCU or DCU comic movie guy.
Not really.
Okay, fair enough. Favorite American president and why?
I'd have to say Ronald Reagan, because in 1980 I was 15, and I was already a political junkie at that point in time. My parents were very politically involved and expected us, my siblings and I, to be politically involved. So I started watching presidential conventions in 1976 when I was 11. As you know, that's when Jimmy Carter became president, and that set the stage for Ronald Reagan in 1980. So I thought Ronald Reagan was a great communicator, and he knew how to speak to people, not at people or above people. And I saw that on display his 8 years when he was a president. And I think I took note of that. And I think that as a legislator, I've tried to do that, be there for people, be real with people, share their concerns, share their tragedies, share their ups and downs, and try to be their voice to make their lives better.
So wait a second. I just heard a number here. Wait a minute. So in 1980, you were how old?
15. It just turned 60.
No way. Brother, you don't look a day over 40. What are you talking about here?
You're my new best friend. Ask Al Barless. I am 60. He knows.
Okay. Well, I mean, all right. I mean, I don't want to take a guess what Al Barless is, but I love you, Al. Just joking with you, brother.
Yeah.
But
Al's in his early 40s.
Okay.
So
okay. Well, listen, Assemblyman, you don't look a day over 40, brother. Let me tell you, I've seen you in person, and you don't look a day over 40. So you're taking great care of yourself. Obviously,
good genes.
Yes, definitely. Any big Easter plans with the family coming up?
All my kids will be home. I'm father of 4, so everyone will be there. We're going to be a little low key this Easter.
Okay.
But we're all just going to be hanging around the house, so it's good. It's going to be good to be together.
Okay, and you're not a pro wrestling fan at all, are you, Assemblyman?
No.
Okay, well, I mean, just because it is Easter weekend, but it's also WrestleMania weekend, and just to sort of put in,
that's one of your things. I know that.
Yeah, and just to put in perspective how I'm feeling old, this is the 41st WrestleMania, so I am. Woo! I remember it back in 1985 in Madison Square Garden. So
when you were how old?
Well, I'll tell you right now, in less than, well, I would say 1, 2, 3, in 20 days, I'll be 50, Mr. Song.
Okay. I thought you were younger than that for sure. So.
Oh, well, God bless you. And you know what? Yeah. I'll go knock on doors for you now in LD40. But before I let you go, man, seriously, you're always such a treasure to me on this program, because again, when I first started Real Talk in the height of the pandemic in June of 2020, as I'm reaching out to legislators, everyone's home, not everyone's interested in talking to the media, but you were always so receptive, and you were always a gentleman, and you always respected my brand. And I'm eternally grateful to you, because you continue to do that. And again, I if anyone ever says a bad word about Chris DePhillips, you got a problem with me. So I want to thank you for your time. You're always a gentleman. We have great discussions about policy, about what's going on in New Jersey, and how you're serving to the best of your ability, and really over and above and beyond. in the 40th legislative district. So I want to thank you for that. I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
It's great to be with you. You're a great journalist. You've taken an interest in me, and you did when I first got elected. And so I appreciated the outreach, and we've been talking ever since. And you've done a great job with Real Talk. And I think you obviously have the traction, and you're moving in the right direction, and your numbers keep going up and up and up. So that's good news.
Listen, and it's due to great guests like you, Mr. Sim. I want to thank you for that. Real quick, if you're able to, let's say the assembly flips this year, how does the hierarchy work in New Jersey? Where are you in the sense of maybe the assembly majority leader? Like where are you in that?
Yeah, I'm the conference leader, so I'm the number 2 in our caucus. We have a great leader in the Assembly Republican caucus, John DeMeo. I don't know if you've spoken to John. He's also a good guy to talk to and get a good gut check on the state. So I encourage you to speak to him. And so he's done a great job leading our caucus, and I'm part of the leadership, and I'm happy to be there.
Just as a civics lesson, real quick, should Republicans be able to flip the assembly, would John DeMeo then be the majority leader? Is that the way it works?
He would likely ascend to the speakership. He would become the speaker.
The speaker. That's right. The speaker of the assembly. All right.
Yeah. So his counterpart is Craig Coughlin, who's the speaker.
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't know if you've had an opportunity to talk to Craig, but Craig's a gentleman, and I'm sure.
Listen, I like the speaker. We talk more at the League of Municipalities over a cocktail than ever getting them on the program. It's really, really hard, but you're not a legislator that's difficult to get in touch with, and I really appreciate you coming on, Mr. Assemblyman. Happy Easter to you, obviously, coming up during the summer. Happy Father's Day.
Yes,
best of luck to you in your race. We'll talk to you later this fall.
Stay in touch. Stay in touch. If you ever want to chat, just give me a call.
And whenever you're up here in Hudson County, hit me up, bro. We'll do a double dinner.
Yeah,
I'll grab some young lady, friend of mine, and we'll do a double dinner. But good talk.
Yeah, and my son lives in Hoboken. So
okay. Well, next time you're in Hoboken, hit me up. I'm happy to.
We're down there quite a bit.
All right, very good, folks. He is the distinguished assemblyman in the 40th legislative district. Christopher DePhillips, our guest tonight here on Real Talk. Assemblyman,
thank you, Fernando. Great to see you.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Folks, good stuff there with Assemblyman Chris DePhillips. Again, he's always a gentleman to come on the show here. And when it comes to talk about policy, really, as I've said before, this is a guy who understands the budget, who understands really what New Jerseyans are struggling with right now in a state where, as we talked about at length tonight, the highest property taxes in the country, the gas tax went up again, tolls will keep going up. We're seeing incompetence with New Jersey Transit, folks. And we're talking about a voice of fiscal reason. Yeah, it starts with Chris DePhillips over there in LD 40. So I'll tell you something. For everybody out there in that legislative district, let me tell you something. You have been spoiled with exceptional leadership over there with the state senator, obviously with Al Barlas, his running mate, but more so with State Assemblyman Christopher DePhillips. So again, shout out to him and the great job he's doing down there in Trenton, being a voice for all of you that are just pissed off about the way we tax and spend in this state. Well, you know what? If Republicans can win the assembly in the next couple of cycles, I'll tell you right now, a guy you want on your side, definitely Assemblyman Christopher DePhillips. Folks, it's 7:00 here on the East Coast. Don't go anywhere. You know what? Hey, listen, it's that time of the show. It's the time of the show that, again, not just because you tune in for all the great guests and the engaging and educational conversations, but we also know why you tune in, because it's time for Final Thoughts. And folks, yes, I think it's very, very easy to say that, since November, a lot of people in Garden State media, activism, advocacy, you name it, haven't really coped too well since last November. And folks, and there's no shortage of Trump derangement syndrome here in the state of New Jersey. Again, whether it's in academia, whether it's in journalism, whether it's in activism or advocacy, take your pick at the amount of clowns that we have here in New Jersey. Okay, listen, you can look at this list behind me, and in no random order, again, just looking at it, of course, you have Antoinette Pope, obviously there, the executive director of the New Jersey Working Families Party, another useless socialist and left-winger who wouldn't know economics or biology if the book landed in front of her. Okay. If a Happy Meal from McDonald's landed in front of her, yeah, she ain't going to, turn that away. But a biology book and economics book, yeah, I don't think so about Antoinette. But of course, we also have other beta males like Joe Amaditis from the Center for Cooperative Media at Woke State University over there in Montclair, or other useless journalists like, I'm Alan Steinberg, and you can tune into my podcast with only 10 people watch every single week. And I'm like the least photogenic journalist in New Jersey. Yes, I know I'm hideous. I can't help it. I'm 85 years old. That's just age. Sorry. Not everyone ages gracefully like Fernando Uribe. Sorry about that. Yet, folks, whether you have journalists like Al Steinberg or John Van Vliet, the usual clowns at Insider NJ, right? Or the other useless activists like Sarah Clonany with Make the Road New Jersey, or useless people in academia like Maria Rodriguez-Gregg, right? Or, again, other useless activists like the resident cat lady herself, Amy Torres, from the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, or other, useless journalists like Chucky, Charles Style, or Matt Freeman, who, can we get this guy a comb? You would think a guy earning over $100,000 a year for political NJ could afford a comb and an iron when he shows up on media shows. I get it. His wife works a lot of hours at the bookstore, and who can blame her? Do you want to come home to this? Probably not. Or other sort of useless activists in New Jersey that, again, exhibit the most comical forms of Trump derangement syndrome, like Hetty Rosenstein, right? Or Patricia Campos Medina, or Valerie Veneri Huddle, or Lauren Albrecht, Miss Photogenic herself. Yikes. Right? Or other TDS, children like Tiffany Fisher. Imagine this woman running for mayor of Hoboken. Who's going to vote for this woman? Really? I can't envision that. Or other useless women in New Jersey media like, I don't know, Jay Lassiter, right? Or other TDS clowns like Assembly candidate Ravi Bala, or people like, I don't know, Phil Cohen, who, folks, imagine being stuck in an elevator with Phil Cohen. Have you seen the size of his nose? He will literally deny you oxygen because he's going to just soak up most of it in a small enclosed space. So imagine just, folks, if you can avoid being stuck in LA with Phil Cohen, please do so at all costs. Again, you're going to run out of oxygen really quickly. But again, folks, I can continue being funny here, but what's not funny really is the amount of Trump derangement syndrome that, again, is exhibited by Max Pizarro. Folks, the least masculine cowboy I've ever seen in my lifetime. And while the New Jersey media is full of beta males, okay, I can tell you that Max Pizarro certainly leads the way here. So let me just give you a perspective here on his latest column, and I'll sort of just pull that up here. You can look at the screenshot here, obviously, and oh my God. Just looking at this is, oh my goodness. Let me just give you a perspective here about Pizarro's recent column. Oh, and I got to tell you, it is, let me just pull this up here for you. Over the weekend, Max Pizarro, and again, folks, let's be very fair. It's Easter week, and, it's a time for miracles as we will see the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, this weekend on Easter Sunday. Okay. But what's always a miracle is thinking that Max Pizarro is actually working or leaving his house or publishing something that actually makes some sort of coherent sense, which it usually doesn't. But his latest column, obviously, and it takes one charisma vacuum to no one. Obviously, John Bramnick and Max Pizarro obviously could suck the air out of any room as soon as they walk into it. But let me just give you a perspective here. All right. So this is how Maxie starts the column, which I think is hysterical here. Amid the anger, the emotion, and hypervelocity partisanship, State Senator John Bramnick refuses to be a demagogue. It's not who he is. I don't know who's being a demagogue, Maxie, but more on that later. He's pragmatic and unwilling to thrust an ideological chest out until he sizes up an issue, which he does with good humor, an agile mind, and the applied principles of law and character. Independent minds celebrate his eloquent and substantive resistance to Donald Trump. Okay. But this is a gubernatorial primary that Bramnick runs in, not an integrity contest. As if Max Pizarro would know what integrity is. That's probably one of the 4-syllable words that Max Pizarro has the least amount of experience with, but more on that later. And he seeks a Republican nomination of a party not led by Clifford Case or Tom Kean Sr., but President Trump. Yes, someone who, folks, again, This is exactly what I voted for. Enforcing borders. Okay. Protecting our girls in sports. Again, and I get it for someone like Max Pizarro, who never leaves his house. So this lazy bastard earns six figures a year, sitting at home, scratching his ass, writing bullshit columns for a bullshit news site, which is what Insider NJ is. Bullshit. But more on that later. But again, what's interesting is that the themes and topics that affect everyday New Jerseyans, you know what, Max is oblivious to. How illegals are running rampant in New Jersey. And thank God for ICE coming into New Jersey and arresting criminal illegals. You think Max Pizarro would write about that? Of course not. He would rather virtue signal. Because that's all he's good at. Okay? But more on that. Let's continue with this bullshit article here. All right? So while two of his opponents, Jack Ciarelli and Bill Speedia, all but arm wrestled last month to prove fealty to Trump at his Bedminster golf course, with Ciarelli clearly getting the better of that tussle, Bramnick persists as the team Trump alternative. Not to be argumentative, but when is Max Pizarro not argumentative? His entire columns are based on this premise. But because it's who he is, he insists on being true to himself and true to principles that can't be pretzeled for the sake of political popularity. If he wins the GOP primary, a big if, he thinks he can mop up in the general. That's not true. We all know that's not true. Quote, I can win overwhelmingly and bring balance back to Trenton. People in New Jersey want balance and they want authenticity. My positions have always been clear, and I'm not the candidate that they're most concerned about. I want people to remember that for 10 years, I was there when every assembly person was reelected for a decade when I served as a Republican leader. There's no doubt I come with my basic principles of law and order, fiscal conservatism, and standing strong against illegal immigration and overdevelopment. He obviously objects to the tag, quote, moderate on the substance of his record, which includes voting for the death penalty and always hard-nosed support for the police. But Bramnick recognizes that, quote, his pro-choice position contributes to his image as a thoughtful lawmaker, not an inflexible stormtrooper. I don't know what stormtrooper is in reference to. Because people that believe in strong conservative principles, Maxie, aren't stormtroopers. They believe in the preservation of borders. Now, listen, I know you're like in your late 60s, so you probably took civics 50-something years ago. But at some point when you weren't falling asleep at your desk in school, you probably do remember that one of the responsibilities of the executive branch is to enforce the borders and preserve our sovereignty. You remember that, right, Max? I mean, I get it. You're at home now, scratching your ass, playing with your dick, writing bullshit articles, and not really remembering what you learned in civics. But for those of us that took U.S. history and passed it, or those that teach it like myself, you remember that one of the responsibilities of the executive branch is to enforce borders. Right? And that's a strong core conservative principle. Not that you know anything about principles, let's be very fair. Right? So what you're alleging is subscribing to being a stormtrooper. That still remains to be seen. You still haven't really explained that. But again, when does Max Pizarro ever really explain anything? Right? Let's continue. He wants voters specifically, Republican voters ahead of the June 10th primary, to remember his career-long dedication to law and order and the unique opportunity of his candidacy in a state where registered Democrats outnumber Republicans by nearly 1 million. Well, folks, that's gone down. As Assemblyman DePhillips mentioned, it's now in the 850,000 range, where at one point it was 1.2 million registered Democrats. That's gone down because what have we learned since November? That people are tired of the woke bullshit. Now, again, someone like Max Pizarro, who just like he probably failed civics, he probably failed high school biology. But unlike myself, who took AP biology and AP anatomy and physiology, by the way, I got A's in both. I mean, as if you're surprised. But again, this is subject matter that Max Pizarro has zero clue about. Because again, in a time where Donald Trump just did fall back into the office, okay? And I'm not going to continue with this bullshit article. I mean, I think you get the drift here about kissing John Bramnick's ass. But again, going back to last November, Donald Trump just didn't fall back into the office. Okay? He won every single state. Okay? He helped Republicans keep a majority in the House, and he helped Republicans flip the United States Senate to where now it's a 52-48 advantage for Republicans. Okay? As well as helping hundreds of counties flip red last November. It wasn't just Donald Trump winning the Electoral College in 2016 and losing the popular vote. No, he won the popular vote decisively, Maxie. It seems like that thought is lost on you. Like a lot of things are lost on you. And I get, listen, I'm not going to blame old age because you're in your late 60s. That's not old. But coherently, we all know where you stand, Maxie, and that's not living in reality. Now, I get it. Listen, I understand when it comes time to talking about woke issues and progressive ideals. I get it. Your dick gets super hard. I get that. Okay. And good for you. But for the rest of it that live in the real world, that aren't earning $100,000 a year, sitting on your ass, playing with your dick at home. No, folks, this is the thing. Regular New Jerseyans, and again, we saw the evidence last November where Donald Trump came within 5 points of flipping New Jersey red. This is where Republicans have a really great advantage this year. Because what we learned last November, again, it seems like Max Pizzaro and the rest of the TDS clowns didn't learn it, was that New Jerseyans, like millions of Americans, are tired of the woke bullshit. They're tired of, again, focusing on pronouns instead of property taxes in New Jersey, which is what people care about. Okay? The idea that we have to cater and coddle mentally ill adults, which are trans people. The idea that parents are coddling and enabling the mental illness of their children by subscribing to this trans nonsense. How come you don't write about that, Maxie? Huh? You're a parent, right? Should you be concerned about your daughter if she has some epiphany? You should be. I don't know, maybe. But God forbid you actually had some integrity. That 4-syllable word you struggle with. But the idea you want to paint State Senator John Bramnick as this sort of Trump alternative to what? Good governing? The idea that the cost of crude oil has gone down? So now the cost of gasoline just in time for the summer might be at a reasonable number, unlike the last 4 years? Not that you ever leave your house, so you didn't feel the crunch in your pocket. But of course, as you're sending Fred Snowflake up and down the state to travel instead of you working, yeah, sure, guess what? It's going to be a little more affordable now for Fred Snowflake at Insider NJ to travel up and down New Jersey during the summer months to do reporting, to do actual journalism. Something that you know nothing about. But the idea that you think that somehow John Bramnick is a good alternative to what? As I said, good governance? The idea that we're having ICE agents enforce our borders and get criminal illegals out of our cities? Have you seen the amount of illegals that we're deporting now? Have you seen how much more secure the border is? But again, folks, this is where Max Pizzaro does you a disservice. He would rather virtue signal and preach about, oh my God, the threat to democracy, the threat of fascism. Folks, none of that is happening. Okay? None of that is happening. But when it comes to being hyperbolic, being hysterical, folks, literally being like a lot of my ex-girlfriends who are just hysterical nags, you could always rely on Max Pizzaro to be that hyperbolic nag. And folks, when I think about the most beta male in New Jersey journalism, well, you always think about a nag like Max Pizzaro. Speaking of like Trump derangement syndrome, let's move on to another guy in New Jersey, and that's Uncle Dave. And by the way, I got to tell you, it is happy Easter week to everybody. And I know that, listen, later on this Friday, we will know that certainly our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ died on the cross for all of us. And then Sunday, the miracle happened and we saw the resurrection of Christ. Well, folks, I have to tell you, what we saw last week was a resurrection of Uncle Dave's work ethic. Uncle Dave working for 3 segments? Y ese milagro. Porque tú eres un huevón. Tú eres un vago. Like, ¿desde cuándo tú trabajas tanto? Like, you're a lazy bastard. But my goodness, the miracles during Easter week of Uncle Dave, el huevón, el vago trabajando tanto. Ay, Dios mío. Uncle Dave, God bless you, brother. Look at you working. But folks, this is the interesting thing about Uncle Dave. As he's been interviewing gubernatorial candidates, check out the look on his face when someone like Mario Kranjik, conservative, pushes back on some of the left-wing bullshit that we've all come to rely on when it comes to Uncle Dave. Let's take a look here.
History, is that not American history?
If it's American history, yes.
but you're playing with the word there, right, David?
I'm sorry?
Black history is history, but actually putting Marxist oppressed.
Mira esa cara de come mierda que tiene David Cruz. I mean, folks, there's a lot of come mierdas in New Jersey journalism, but folks, esa cara de come mierda se la ganó.
Oppression thoughts into the curriculum where everyone is either an oppressor or an oppressed. That's not history.
But I mean, honestly, Mayor, that really is an oversimplification.
That's a big word, oversimplification. That's a big word for Uncle Dave. Coño, someone got Uncle Dave a dictionary. Dios mío.
No, it's not actually, because that's what they're doing. They want children to hate each other because one side will be oppressed and one side will be an oppressor. That's not education.
He's not wrong, by the way. I mean, again, I have my issues with Myra Kranjik, whether or not his candidacy is viable at this point since he got into the race so late, but he's not wrong in what he's saying. And you could just tell Uncle Dave is like seething. Like, it's like when they don't have his favorite sandwich in the food court. Like, mira la cara de encojonado que está Uncle Dave. Watch.
That actually, those Marxist theories failed throughout the world. Where
what Marxist theories are you talking about exactly?
Well, again, because Uncle Dave, over 70 years ago, obviously was asleep during history class. Karl Marx, the breakdown of Western civilization, the breakdown of the nuclear family. Again, these are things that, for example, during the summer of 2020, when people like myself and others couldn't go to a funeral because of COVID and social distancing, Uncle Dave is there with his dick getting hard, as if he can see his dick, about BLM riots and BLM marches. And oh my God, we have to rally together to, celebrate the life of a career criminal. That's cool. Folks, Black Lives Matter, the movement, and all these left-wing progressives, they love the breakdown of the nuclear family. This is what we're talking about here, about cultural Marxism. You would think that Uncle Dave, when he was in school decades ago, would have read about this. But again, when you're too busy eating, it's hard to pick up a book when you'd rather pick up a sandwich. But more on that.
I mean, I don't want to get sidetracked, but when you say that they're teaching Marxism,
right?
They are,
let's
Dave.
Go. In the rest of the world, Marxism was embedded because of the disparity in incomes.
He's not wrong. I mean, that's the whole reason the progressives and socialists all ejaculated in their pants about Marxism and Karl Marx, about all that nonsense.
There was the middle class and the rest.
How are they
right?
teaching Marxist theory?
Here, let me get to that. Give me a chance. Here.
You see what I'm saying? Like, Dave is like, see that. Do you think Uncle Dave would ever challenge a left winger or a progressive when they come on his show and they espouse these ridiculous woke bullshit talking points? Of course not. Like, that would require Uncle Dave espere for that 4-syllable word that he struggles with. Integrity. More on that.
What happened was the Marxists said, well, we don't have those income disparities in America and opportunities are equal. So what we'll do is we'll divide the country based on race. And my whole lifetime has been inclusive of everyone. We grew up in a beautiful country where we treated everyone equally and fairly. And as Martin Luther King said, based on character and merit, not on the color of your skin. And unfortunately, what Governor Murphy and everyone else did with the curriculum is they brought in these theories of Marxism into the classroom where people felt oppressed because of their color of their skin or the status of their lives. That wasn't fair to children. You only have one chance to do a childhood right.
That's right.
And the parents are responsible for everything other than what schools should be teaching them. And parents could teach them things when and how, if they want to. But they don't have to be letting the government co-parent with them.
All right, let me move on from that, except to say that when Martin Luther King Jr. talked about the content of one's character and being judged that way, he didn't say that that was what was happening. He said that that was something that we should strive for. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but let's move on.
No, we did that during my lifetime, David. During my lifetime, everyone was treated very fair. And then it was in 2020.
Okay. Let me move on, Mayor. Let me move on because that's patently untrue. The state's business community has been frustrated by this
interesting part.
Practically went through the budget and we cut off getting 50. I just gave you an example to fight President Trump's policies. Gavin Newsom in California has the same line item and it's $50 million. People don't realize. Well, what kind of authorization are you referring to?
Anyone.
They're being ripped off.
All right.
Here it is.
Let me move on here. Is it your opinion that anyone in the country without proper authorization is a criminal? And would you then arrest and deport them all?
Well, what kind of authorization are you referring to, David?
With papers, as it were.
With
Green
are you
card.
saying that, are you saying that if someone is in the country unlawfully, they should be deported?
Without, sure, yes.
Yes, they should be deported, and they should have the opportunity, if they're not criminals, to apply the right way and come back if permitted.
So you would arrest and deport them all?
You're using two words. I would deport them. I don't know if you need to arrest them, but they need to
Well,
be
you
deported.
have to apprehend them.
Well, they need to be deported. They should have been here in the first place, right? Wouldn't you agree with me? If you're not legally here, you shouldn't be here.
It doesn't matter what I think about this.
No, David, it actually does, because you spend an enormous amount of time lecturing us about, oh, what are we doing with ICE and whether or not we're using private jails and private prisons are being bought out here in New Jersey to house people here illegally and then deport them. Of course, it matters what you think because you have a platform, you have a microphone. So when you try to lecture us with your bullshit left-wing nonsense, yeah, it does matter because you have a platform. You're trying to influence policy and discussion when it comes to this. So don't stop BSing us that you think that we're not onto your little bullshit. We are. I know I am.
It's more important what you think about this, but that's at
Oh,
least,
absolutely. They should be
it's at
deported.
least 500,000 people in New Jersey. What kind of impact do you think?
Okay, so deport them. They're here illegally, David. I understand, folks, this is what drives me crazy about Uncle Dave. Uncle Dave wants to come out with this sob story, and he'll have all these ridiculous left-wing progressive organizations on his show, chat box, that nobody watches. Let's be very fair. Nobody watches that bullshit show. Nobody. Not like they watch this show, but that's another conversation. Okay? But every time he has the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice, Make the Road New Jersey, the New Jersey Working Families Party, he is happy to coddle all of these left-wing organizations that live to coddle illegals. And for a guy like David Cruz, earning $100,000 a year, working maybe 6 months, if that, and that's saying a lot for this lazy bastard, okay, to not even just come out forcefully and say, yes, if you're here illegally, you should be deported. David, again, the importance of sovereignty. But were you asleep when they taught this?
That would have on the state's economy, for instance.
It'll flourish. We won't have to support 500,000 people who are
And
here
who would
unlawfully.
take their job?
And let me
And by the way, during January of 2009 to January of 2017, you know who deported more illegals in this country than any president, at least in my adult lifetime? The 44th president, Barack Hussein Obama. Did the economy fall apart when it came to jobs and manufacturing and working? No. And he deported more people than any of his predecessors. The 8 years of Obama deported more people than the 16 years of George W. Bush and Bill Clinton before him. Did the economy fall apart for some reason? Did people not have jobs? I mean, were people just living off Medicaid and public assistance? No. These jobs didn't disappear, David. But again, it would require you to put down a sandwich, pick up a history book, and read about this. Again, folks, you would think Uncle Dave would have some coherent thought process here, but that's a lot to ask from Uncle Dave.
finish the answer. And we'll be able to take care of the 99,000 people in the state who are food insecure, the 12,000 people who are unhoused, 1,200 of whom are veterans. We need our money for the people who are here lawfully, not to support people who came from another country unlawfully. It doesn't make sense.
Should government be playing a role, for instance, in ensuring affordable housing?
Well, folks, again, I mean, you can watch the rest of that awful interview, on your own time. But you get the sense, right, about why Uncle Dave is so intellectually dishonest here. A guy will do something. I'm not even going to play you that bullshit segment about, oh my God, in private prisons in New Jersey. Folks, for the last 4 years, we had a serious problem at the border where Joe Biden was asleep. Kamala Harris was getting drunk. Okay. And clearly there wasn't a mandate to enforce our borders and to get criminal illegals out of here. Okay, where we saw criminals destroying our way of life in New Jersey and across this country. Okay? So before David Cruz gives you the sob story about illegals, do you think David Cruz has the same amount of empathy for the family of Laken Riley? Or Kate Stanley? Or other Americans that were victimized by criminal illegals? Of course not, because that would require Uncle Dave to have, wait for it, integrity. Y todo mundo sabe que este come mierda no tiene nada de eso. Okay? He doesn't have any of that. Because he'd rather virtue signal and lecture you about why conservatism and conservative principles are evil. No, folks, they've worked. They've been working. Okay? We're drilling domestically. The cost of crude oil is going down. We're paying less in gasoline. The cost of eggs has gone down. You would think for someone that looks like Uncle Dave, that consumes as many eggs as Uncle Dave, would be ecstatic. He would be blowing a load in his pants about the cost of eggs going down, which they have. Where interest rates for mortgages are going down. So when people are looking to move into, let's say, Jersey City, where he lives in, and people are looking at maybe, I don't know, homes in the shithole part of southern part of Jersey that he lives in, that mortgages maybe can be more affordable to people, to working class people. These are all things that are good, folks, right? Maybe not living in the south side of Jersey City in that shithole, but you know what I'm saying. Like, these are all things that are due to good governing. This is exactly what I voted for. But you would think that someone like Uncle Dave, who's been in this business long enough, would tell you the truth. And the fact is, he isn't. He'd rather virtue signal, he'd rather lecture at you than tell you the truth. And the truth is, folks, since January 20th, we're getting everything we voted for and more. We're protecting our girls in sports. We're making sure that we're not coddling mentally ill people, trans people. That we're not coddling all this left-wing nonsense from the alphabet mob. That we're moving away from woke bullshit like pronouns and worrying about real world issues. You would think Uncle Dave would talk about that, but no, Uncle Dave would rather virtue signal and lecture you about what things should be. Well, folks, things could be a lot better, and they're getting better. Again, a little short-term pain for a long-term gain. I'm all for that. But let's be honest. When has Uncle Dave ever felt any short-term pain? Maybe when the food court is closed at the Gateway Center. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, once again, I want to thank all of you, obviously all of you that tune in every single week here on the program. And of course, I can't say enough about, the traffic here. And the reason the traffic does so well is because of all of you. And again, I'm deeply humbled by all of you that make this show a success. So let's have humble Fernando talk to you for just a moment. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you that tune in. My family, my friends, my frenemies, colleagues, classmates, you name it. People that tune in every single week and trust this podcast for engaging, educational, and entertaining dialogue. Because that's what I bring you every single week here. And without all of you at home, this traffic behind me, these numbers would not be possible. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm deeply humbled. And as you all know, I'm not the most humble guy around. But folks, you know what? What better person to talk about the greatness of Real Talk than my childhood idol? A guy whose record could be broken this weekend by John Cena at WrestleMania 41, where the 16-time World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, my idol, says it better than anybody.
The bottom line, woo! Whether you like it or don't like it, learn to live with it, because God bless you, it's the best thing going today. Woo!
Let's watch that again.
Bottom line, woo! Whether you like it or don't like it, learn to live with it, because God bless you, it's the best thing going today. Woo!
Oh, that's right, folks. And again, when we talk about outstanding traffic, It's due to all of you. But again, when you have your little Mickey Mouse journalists with your little Mickey Mouse shows, doing your little Mickey Mouse journalism with your little Mickey Mouse traffic, folks, unlike other people, the only traffic they know is what's on Kennedy Boulevard, or Route 3, or Route 4, or Route 7. But folks, here on this show, it's real traffic because it's real talk. Woo! And that's our show for this week. Once again, I want to thank the distinguished Assemblyman in the 40th Legislative District. That's right, folks, Christopher DePhillips, for his appearance this week on the show. Folks, I can't say enough. Make sure you like us on Facebook, of course, follow us on Instagram and X, and of course, on YouTube. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to tonight's episode and all our episodes here on the Jersey First Television Network. And of course, folks, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and take it with you anywhere at any time. I can't say enough what a privilege it is to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, folks. It's Jersey First TV, always educating and advocating for the residents of the great state of New Jersey. Brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday, hosted by my outstanding tag team partner, the amazing Elizabeth Nader with the Nader Narrative. And of course, brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe premiere every Monday night. Check your local listings for start times for both programs here on the Jersey First Television Network. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid. It's Real Talk right here on the Jersey First Television Network. I am the generational talent in Garden State Media. Of course, folks, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption because my level of honesty now more than ever is truly necessary in this era of journalistic deception. That's right, folks. I'm the hero you need right now, Fernando Uribe, saying, folks, enjoy Easter week. For all my fellow pro wrestling fans, enjoy WrestleMania weekend. It's WrestleMania 41. Live from Las Vegas this Saturday and Sunday on Peacock and, of course, on pay-per-view. Folks, we might see some records broken and some history made. We'll find out on the 41st edition of the Super Bowl of Pro Wrestling. That's right, folks. It's WrestleMania this Saturday and Sunday. And I'll be tuning in, and who knows? We'll see some great pro wrestling, some great entertainment, all emanating from Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, folks, the entertainment capital of the world. Out west here, folks, I got some friends going out there. Enjoy. If you're watching WrestleMania this weekend, please party responsibly. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy Easter weekend, folks, again. And by the way, this Thursday, come by Waterside, the world-famous Waterside, along the waterfront in North Bergen, New Jersey, for Memories Matter 2025 to benefit Alzheimer's New Jersey. By the way, I'll be joined by my incredible co-hosts, Vladimir Carrero, Alexandra Hammer, Jacqueline Rodriguez, Carmen Kenny, and Lucy Costa, as we're raising money for Alzheimer's New Jersey. Folks, DJ Ziggy Roman will be rocking it all night long. And of course, we'll have a great crowd, a very good-looking crowd, folks, a lot of talent walking around. And listen, it's Good Friday coming up. You'll be off. So come party with us on Thursday for the 2025 edition of Memories Matter to benefit Alzheimer's New Jersey. And together, we'll defeat Alzheimer's once and for all. Folks, again, see you this Thursday. Please party responsibly. Again, enjoy your Easter weekend with family and enjoy WrestleMania weekend as well. I'll see you next week here. Latest edition of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe here on Jersey First TV. Folks, thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.